Hello guys, welcome to a new video. Today I'm going to be showing you the process of an illustration that I created as an unofficial piece for the YouTube Artist Collective. For those who are unfamiliar with the collective, basically it's a group of artists who all create illustrations based around a particular theme every few months, and then they post their videos on YouTube so you can see the process. And you may remember that last time they did a theme, I was invited along as an official guest, so I did a piece based around the Grimm's Fairy Tales theme, and that was really fun. I really enjoyed that. And I'm not a guest this time, but I wanted to carry on taking part unofficially, which they do welcome. You can always follow along with the theme if you like. And so this month's theme was Cards of Fables, Fate and Fortune. So that includes playing cards, tarot cards, all different kinds of cards and that kind of thing. Right from the first time that I heard about this theme, I was angling towards the sun, and initially I will admit that was just because I knew that I wanted to use a ton of gold ink. I have no idea why, I just haven't used gold ink on anything for a while and I just wanted to break out that shiny gold ink. And also my star sign is a fire sign. It felt natural to kind of go towards that. And when I looked into the symbolism behind the card, it fitted with what I wanted to portray as well. So obviously it varies depending on where you read about it, but essentially the sun is a very positive sign. It represents life, happiness, energy, wealth, generally all those things that we all want in life. And it's a symbol for success. It means you're achieving your goals, you're on the right track, you're surrounded by good people. It's just generally a very positive card. But the reverse side of the sun card can also mean that you've overexerted yourself. You've essentially burnt yourself out, if you don't mind the metaphor there. And it represents a kind of temporary depression. And it is always temporary. That's what they say about the sun card. If you get it in reverse, then the feelings that you have from that are only ever temporary and they will go back to being light again. And so I wanted to portray that light through the colours and the symbols on this card. And when I did my research into the meanings behind this, I did relate really strongly to them, because it is very easy to start to doubt your own abilities and your own success or lack of success that you might feel, especially when you're posting your artwork online and you're surrounded by peers, you're surrounded by other artists, and you're constantly seeing this stream of amazing artwork, and you start to feel a bit inadequate. And I will admit that I really struggle with this, and my friends will know sometimes I do have really bad confidence crises with my work, and it is tough. It happens to everyone, and so I think it's a very relatable thing that sometimes you work as hard as you can and you burn yourself out, and you just start to look at your own projects and your own artwork or whatever it is that your skills lie in, and you start to think, is this good enough? But eventually it goes away again and you get your motivation back, and it's a really good feeling. And so I thought the meanings behind this card, I really related to them, and I wanted to portray that, and hopefully I managed to portray it successfully, though there are a few things that I would do differently if I did it again. Another thing that was said about the sun card was that the sun is apathetic. So it gives its light out freely, it doesn't discriminate, but it also doesn't moderate. So it has no feelings towards the living creatures that rely on that light to survive. And so I wanted to portray this figure giving out the light, but also having very little concern for those that rely on it. And so what I've drawn here is, it was originally a man, because I just tend to default to drawing men all the time. It's something I've got to work on, because I really am bad at drawing women, and it's something that I'm doing at the moment. I've got an observational sketchbook where I'm trying to practice drawing women, and I'm so bad at it, but anyway, never mind. I will keep trying. But yeah, I kind of defaulted towards drawing a man, and then he started to look kind of androgynous, so at this point it's kind of like just a androgynous deity figure. That's the kind of thing I ended up going with. And in one hand they're giving out the light, the glow, where I got to use that gold ink, and in the other hand they have a bunch of sunflowers, which was a running theme on a lot of the tarot cards that I saw when I was doing my research, because obviously sunflowers, they represent the sun, they also represent life, and that's what the sun gives. But I also wanted to portray some small details, which I don't know if they're as successful as I wanted them to be. Like I said, there are some things that I would rework if I did this again. I put in some flowers, some petals and leaves that were coming off of the sunflowers that were falling to the ground, because I wanted to portray that in terms of this figure giving out their light and energy freely, they have actually given too much to the sunflowers and they've dried out and they're withering. And this figure doesn't notice, it doesn't really care, because it doesn't concern them. And in the other hand, there's the sun, the light pouring out freely. They don't stop giving out that light just because it may harm those below it. And I also wanted to show the same thing in the character's expression, which unfortunately didn't turn out how I wanted. I wanted a really apathetic, neutral look, and it ended up kind of looking a little bit angry. I think it's the eyebrows, so I've got to work on how I draw eyebrows because they tend to look a little bit angry. So that's not quite how I wanted it to turn out, but this whole illustration ended up very different to my initial plans anyway, because initially when I first started thinking of ideas, I had this image of going with purple and gold as my colour scheme, and then I decided to angle towards red and gold. And if I did it again, it would be interesting to try out my original purple and gold idea and see how it looked. I also had the idea of doing much more geometric jagged lines, more patterns. I did get some patterns in, but not as many as I wanted to. And yeah, I think it would be fun to give it another go, maybe in a few months or something, do a little bit of a draw this again challenge and see how it looks then. I don't do a lot of abstract stuff really, even though I am a big fan of geometric shapes in artwork and jewellery and that kind of thing. So it was nice to experiment with those and include some different elements of patterns and design. And I used the white pen. You can see me struggling to do that with a pencil when I was trying to add those swirling lines because I couldn't find my Posca marker and I was getting really agitated, and then I found it. And then it stopped working. So it wasn't meant to be with the Posca marker. So yeah, in the background between the sun's rays, I drew some flowing lines which kind of looked like abstract trees or vines, and that was to represent the life that the sun gives the planet that relies on that light. And I also drew the moon. I wanted to include the moon because the sun and the moon are obviously often seen as a pair, and so while the sun is kind of taking over and dominating this image, I wanted the moon to be in there somewhere in the background. It took me a little while before I was happy with how it looked. I was playing around with patterns and then I just didn't like them, and then I got rid of them, and luckily I have this silver pen that will write over anything, so I just completely wiped it out with the silver pen and started again. And I'm quite happy with the end result on that, and I like the transition from blue to red in the background as well. But like I said, if I did it again, I'd probably try and play with even more patterns because I actually really enjoyed adding in those geometric elements. I think it would be really fun to experiment with flat colours and patterns instead of always going for a traditional samey line art and shading kind of look, because that's not something I've ever really done. So this has kind of helped me to think of some ideas for future illustrations maybe, so that's fun. I used a huge amount of different materials for this illustration. I've been really playing with mixed media lately. I've been inspired by Sophia Lou, who uses markers and colour pencil and all sorts of different supplies on the same image, and whereas I used to just use like either watercolours or markers or coloured pencils, now I'm kind of trying to mix them all together. So I used the Kuretake Mangaka flexible fineliner for the lines. I think everyone knows that's my favourite by now. And for the colouring, I used a mixture of Koi watercolours and Kuretake Gansai Tambi watercolours. I really like the Koi ones actually. I've not heard very good reviews of them. They are a little bit chalky, but personally I've been really enjoying using them, and they've got a nice little carry case with a palette and they're easy to carry around, so I've been using that a lot lately. I also used a little bit of Polychromos colour pencil, then I used the Winsor Newton gold ink. I used an Edding metallic red pen for some geometric details, and a Copic marker for some of the shading, and a white gel pen as well. Oh, and also there was a Chinograph pencil, a white Chinograph pencil, which I used when I couldn't find the Posca. Then I found the Posca, then it stopped working. So there's a whole bunch of stuff going on there. So yeah, it was really fun to kind of experiment with mixing these materials together. This illustration was a really experimental one because it didn't turn out how I initially planned, but it's interesting to see how things change as they go, and like I said, I may redraw it in the future and see how it turns out then. Also, something I forgot to mention in my previous video where I was doing traditional art. I mentioned it in the description, but I forgot to say it in the actual video. These traditional art videos are now recorded in a new workspace, which I'm really excited about. I've actually got a new camcorder because, like I said, my old one developed a fault where it wouldn't focus on anything. And I've also got a new desk, so that allows me to focus an area specially for traditional art, which is really exciting because I've always had one desk for both, and I could only ever record from a side-on angle, side-on, not the fish man in Zelda, a side-on angle, you know what I mean. And now I can record from the top down onto the illustration, which allows a proper view, so hopefully that is easier for you to see, so I'm not always getting my head in the way of the camera and stuff. I also bought a new tablet, so that was another part of the reason I had to buy a second desk, is because I bought a Cintiq 22 HD, and it's huge, and my whole desk is just Cintiq now, so yeah, that happened. And yeah, I have a lot in progress to post, so just working on that, and yeah, I hope you'll like it. So thank you for watching this video, really hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!